is that easy to include in your documents, even if you're not using one of the packages. The support issue, I thought basically there were these considerations. Do you have support built in your law school? I'm told that some law schools have support personnel that can help them draft the pages, basically draft everything for them, tell them what they want. Even at the University of Nebraska, there's some departments, not our law school, but some places where they have people there, and you just say, I want to jazz the web page and I want to do this, and so you can get that accomplished. But if you're like me, and you basically have to do it yourself, then you think about the ease of the program and getting this accomplished. We do have at our school university support, but that means you have to look to people outside of the law school and work around their time parameters. And they may not think that the law school is the most important entity on the campus, even though we do. So sometimes you have to deal with that. The other place you might get support is, of course, from the provider. Many of the providers, even if you can't talk to them directly, will have websites that you can use to get information. They're creating forums for users in various disciplines, including law, that you can use to interact with. One of the things I liked about TWEN when I used it was that the law professors have a law professor forum, and when you had problems, yes, you could talk to somebody in Westlaw, but you could also talk to somebody that was using TWEN in the law school environment and say, well, how do I load this graphic up? And usually somebody would reply that day, the next day. And so that was a very helpful aspect of TWEN. So if you go to some of the other non-law related systems, proprietary systems, you might not have the same direct kind of feedback as it relates to law. The other thing I thought about was at startup, what do you need to get started up? It's fairly easy to just go and click on a website to get it started up, but you need somebody to sort of walk you through it, consider how easy it is to get it set up, and then once you get the site the way you want, how easy it is to keep it that way and to make it a dynamic kind of site you want to change things. The cost, as I said, involves more than just dollar amounts, but you do need to think about whether your students are going to have to pay increased costs, whether you're going to need to buy other things to help you, like development software, whether or not the software you're going to use itself is going to mean some additional cost for you. Most of the schools that are adopting proprietary systems for the entire campus are not doing any kind of a direct billing to the law school. Once our school adopted, for example, course info, then anybody on the campus could use it. You didn't have any, at least, cost that we could see individually, although I'm sure each unit is paying something for it. And then, again, support. You can see a lot of these are interdependent. You're going to have your costs increased if you need to go somewhere else for support because you don't have it readily available. And the other major cost is how much time you're going to need to devote to preparation of your page. This is basically some of the concerns that are directly related to course info adoption at the University of Nebraska and why I'm considering using it. There's lots of support for the IT people around. Most people at the university generally think it's a good system. They've started a listserv, and so you can interact with them. The downside is, of course, that most of these people are not in the law school, so their questions are not going to be directly related to things that you want to do. In the law school, we have not adopted it generally for everybody to use. You choose whatever you want, Lexis, TWEN, or this proprietary system, or some other proprietary system. In the law school, a couple of us are beginning to experiment with course info to see if that's what we want to use. Course info has a number of different products. You can go to their site there, and when this is eventually posted, you can go to my presentation and click on it to take you to these places. But there's one product called Blackboard.com, and they will allow you to establish one class free. Your school does not have to have adopted this at all. You can go there and play around with it, establish a course, do whatever you want to, and you don't have to pay anything for it. Course info is the product that your campus would have to adopt. They pay a fee for it, and then all the professors use it. And then Blackboard Campus is a more elaborate version of course info. Basically the same, but communication, remember, one of the factors that I thought was important. You can establish there both the forums, but you can also do online chats, whiteboard kind of discussions, so you can do asynchronous and synchronous discussions. The assessment tools and gradebook I found quite elaborate. I looked today at the virtual classrooms gradebook feature, and they have incorporated a number of different improvements, and so I think now it's quite similar to what Course Info does. Basically, that means you can grade assignments, keep them on the website, let students upload their assignments, then give them feedback, and that's one of the features that's now in Course Info also. The content creation, you can put almost anything you want up there. There is some online assistance. Blackboard doesn't have it as elaborate as I would like it right now. They're putting up a new feature called Resource. So when you're doing something, you can click on that and get some online assistance, but it doesn't quite work yet. You can establish work groups for your students. So you might compare other products and say if you can do that, you not only can let individual students do things, but group them and give them work assignments, and then they can work individually within those groups without the other students seeing what they're doing. And I find the ease of file exchange and Course Info very good. Again, virtual classroom demonstrated showing that their file exchange seems to be much improved and easy also. It's in version 4, by the way, and they said it will be available in July. Other features, messaging, user tracking, I think most of the systems have that. You can do a survey feature. That is, you can keep records of the different kinds of activity. Plus, you can create surveys to ask questions. You're not necessarily grading that. You're just trying to get information from the class. There's an elaborate kind of course calendar and announcement structure where they can click on the different days in the calendar and find out what is going to happen in class or what assignments are due. Each student can create their own calendar within the system also. Built-in system website searches. And I do find it's easy in this format to actually create students in groups, both with TWEN and virtual classroom. I never was able to do a group upload that, at least to my satisfaction. And so I did them in TWEN at the time, at least. Students had to sign up individually. Virtual classroom, I found that I had to sign up individually. Here, as long as you can put it in a number of different formats, primarily delimited text, just upload them and register all the students at once. This is an article that I just happened to see it right before I was leaving, coming here in the Journal. That's a publication that educators can get free of charge, but now they're putting all this online. Just so happened that this person had sort of done the same kind of assessment that I'm doing. Of course, he didn't look at legal systems, but this was his comment, came out rating Course Info as the top system, reviewing all of the others except for TWEN and virtual classroom. I looked at their website to see if this particular article was up yet. Right now they have the current issue as May of 1999, so within a few weeks I think they'll have the June 1999 issue, and you can go and read this article to look at the various products. Again, I won't go into that in a lot of detail. Most of the kinds of things you're going to look for are in our experience, this is a report that was given by one of the people at UNL. We introduced January 6th, 140 courses were created, 1,800 students registered, so they determined to be a success because many professors had not wanted to tackle web-based courses until we got course info. They found it very easy, and this is basically an assessment that is reliable service and support. So UNL is going to stick with that. Now, what I want to do is just show you a quick kind of comparison, give you some views of what course info looks like. I'm not going online, so these are just screen captures of what you can find there. But again, as I said, you can go to their site and play around with it. And the example that I chose to compare, and I did a lot of different things with the various systems, but one thing that I found particularly good in course info was uploading a file in comparison to the uploading ease with TWEN and Virtual Classroom. Now let's see if I can get it to that. Excuse me just one minute. Distortion react. Okay. This sort of shows how the system looks, at least at the University of Nebraska. When you go in, it gives you the various choices where people have set up different classes, and you can see there's a selection for law. So when the university adopts it, the first page you see is for the courses across the campus. And then if I choose and go into the law section, you can see there are only two of us that are really experimenting right now, me with the administrative law and another professor that's doing insurance law. And so that's the way the screen looks when you first go into it. Then you go into the course, and these are the various choices that you have that you can select: announcements, course information, etc. You can use all of them. You don't have to use them. This is their format for the announcements page. You can go and put your own graphics up there. You don't have to use their graphics. Since I'm just starting out with this one, I decided to use my own graphics, but you're not limited by that. You can see here there is a control panel on the instructor's page. It doesn't show up on the student's page, and that's what you would select, that control panel, to get into the various features to show you how to set up your page. And it's all very menu driven. So if you go to control panel, it gives you these various choices. This just gives you the heading. There's another setting. You can see at the bottom that says if you want to use full detail enabled, it will give you a description about each of those various features, and then you can click on the one that you want and go into it. Right now I'm just using the disabled one, just giving you the headings. So, for example, here's one feature you go into, and I began to set up documents. It allows you to add documents, create folders, put various documents in the folders. Again, it's very easy to set up. They give you some names, but if you don't like their names, you can change it. You can modify the item, give it a different name, but it makes it very easy if you are willing to use their names. Otherwise, you can plug in your other names. So I want to give you just an example. I decided to upload some files under the handout folders, giving links to various sites, etc. This is just sort of how the screens look. You can see I click on here, say add a document. And this was the example I wanted to give you about the difference in adding documents to the various kinds of systems. So here I decided I wanted to add a document to this page. You go there, it asks you what the document is, what do you want to name it. You want to use our name handout. You want to put in some other name. You can put in different colors. You can give some little description if you want that goes on that page. This next slide is a continuation of that page. Ask you if it contains HTML, so you can put HTML in the folders or in the document upload itself. You can go and browse and find the file that you want. It gives you some other options. You can go and put all this stuff up and not make it available immediately. Just have it there and then make it available as you want it. You can link it to a file, or you can and just say there's a link here, or you can give it some special name. This special action asks you if there's going to be some dynamic action involved in the page, like video or something like that. You tell it that that's incorporated in the page. So I was just loading up a simple page. I decided to load one document that had some GIFs. Now, and this is one thing that I found particularly helpful with course info may be available in the new versions of Virtual Classroom and TWEN. When I loaded the page up, it said to me, well, you have these other files, these GIF files, and we want to know where they are. So tell us where they are. So it tells you automatically there are some links that you need to tell it where it is. Whereas I found with TWEN and Virtual Classroom, that feature was not built in. And so you had to go and remember yourself to go and load this in. So this, whenever you load up a page, anything that's associated with it is going to ask you where that is, and you want to upload that at the time being. So I found for uploading files that was particularly helpful. And I'm probably way over my time, so I'm going to end now, and I think Deb's going to come in.
Give me 1 minute to plug in. I know, I'm showing you everything at once.
It's not showing.
One moment, please. Are you ready? There. All right, it appears to be the shrunken version. It's kind of pathetic. One more try. Because it's really much nicer on a big screen. Oh, there we go. Okay. Welcome. I'm going to be building off of Anna's presentation to some extent and talking about some highlights of some web course packages and more. Ooh. There are lots of choices available. There's several reviews out there, people who have already gone before us and have reviewed extensively every single piece of minutia that's available in any package. So I'm going to skip over that. There are a lot of choices in addition to the ones that Anna listed. I'll just mention one of the things if you're looking for cost, NiceNet. Nice thing about NiceNet, as they say, is it's free. The downside is that it's free. So what I'm going to focus on is Top Class and WebCT and some of the things that you might use the class or use the courseware for in your class. A traditional course that you might have is going to have a lecture, calendar, chat room, quiz features, resource links, announcements, syllabus, email features. These are all going to be spun off of your course homepage. And I'm going to particularly focus on email and bulletin boards because I think this is the area where you can most have interactivity to most replicate the actual classroom setting. So in Top Class, it's got a number of features. A discussion list, and their students can send messages to you. The nice thing about their discussion list is when students post a message from any point, the URL is included in that message, so you can see exactly where their point of breakdown was, which is nice if you like to track that. WebCT, they have bulletin board also. This allows for collaboration. You can recreate a classroom dialogue. You can add check marks so you know where you've been. The interface is similar to the mail tool for their bulletin board. And you can also organize threaded messages. And the messages are threaded. So the advantage there is it creates the illusion of a dialogue just as you would have in class where people are responding to each other. So those are pretty nifty.
What do you mean by organized?
By organized, I mean they come organized. They would come under a topic.
By topic chronologically.
By topic chronologically, yes. I would consider that organized. Then testing and quizzes, I think, is the other thing that you might want to do with a web course package to replicate sort of the Socratic method or the conversation that goes on in class or the problem method that you engage in with students to do some sort of testing. And most of the testing in both Top Class and WebCT are linear, very linear. So the format of questions in Top Class is multiple choice or matching. WebCT, the test can be timed, and the format is matching, essay, multiple choice. The essay is not graded for you. Don't get excited. It's sent to you for your viewing convenience later. The computer can grade the quizzes and report to the students, but the entire conversation is really very linear. So, CALI. It's the CALI conference. I have to talk about CALI. We have an exciting package that's coming out new this year, and as I was putting this presentation together and seeing all the linear uses of question and quiz, and on the other side of my desktop was our new product, CALI Author. So I just wanted to tease you a bit here and tell you a little bit about CALI Author and how you can use it actually in your web courses. I'm not talking about CALI Author from the old days, but the new CALI Author. We have numerous question types, multiple choice, which is your traditional pick one, A through C, D sort of thing. Multiple choice, very good for policy sort of situations. Which of these are factors, select all type questions. True, false, short answer, essay, again, we don't grade for you either, sorry. Matching, and then sliders. You can ask students to pick the gray area sort of thing. We also have a number of question possibilities. You can ask students questions in a linear fashion. You can ask them branch questions, double check their answer, you can drill them on things, you can include video, audio, or photo. When you're creating a question, these are all the things that you can include. In CALI Author, You're going to be viewing the authoring and student software at the same time. So it's very much how it's going to appear on the screen. There are nonlinear possibilities, which I'm going to go into in a few minutes. It's very easy to update, and you can export it to HTML. And this is the thing which is going to make it able to link to absolutely any web course that you grab. Because whatever web course package you're using, you simply include a URL to your web page where you've uploaded your CALI authored lesson onto your web page. So the link from your web course will take the students directly to the part of your web page where the quiz is featured. There are a number of teaching techniques that we use as faculty. The ones on the left, more traditional: lecture, Socratic method, notes, simulations, hypotheticals, examples, cases. But on the right, these are the things you can do in the electronic format. Drills, mini-Socratic dialogues, what we call stick to your guns, which I'll explain in a minute, remedial loops, expert mode, and supplemental branch. Let's look, shall we? So you start out with a question, an answer, and a question. And when you have multiple, this is a traditional linear format. You're just asking them a number of questions and giving them answers, right or wrong. So you start out with a basic building block of questions. And when you have multiple, when you have multiple questions that are just linked one on top of the other, we call this Nintendoing. The student is just clicking through looking for green answers. Where's the green stuff? I don't care about why it's wrong. I must learn this quickly. Give me green answers. Give me good. And too much of this is just, we don't have different levels in CALI Author, so you will not uncover mystery levels. So there's really no need for Nintendo. So you have your basic building blocks, and you can loop right answers from one question around to other places. This is the expert mode. If they get the answer right, they're going to go to a different questions. If they get a wrong answer, you can take them out on a branch of some sub-questions and then bring them back to the traditional path of questions. It's a novice mode. If they get a right answer, you can give them additional questions, take them back to the original question. This is stick to your guns. They answered one way. Are you sure? Did you consider this? What about this factor? Does that matter? Oh, you were right after all. That's a version of the Socratic method. If they get the wrong answer, you can take them out to the side and go through a remedial branch. Students do not know that they're going through a remedial branch. So it's not as though you're labeling them, oh, come along this way for some extra help. They simply are branched out to some different questions. And then you can take a right answer, build more questions off of it to fill out the knowledge. These are all possibilities in CALI Author, which is going to be demoed later today. But when you compare this to using linear questions in a web course format, this seems like a good option to include as an HTML document. Oops, it's a backward slide. That's it. Thank you.
Love technology. Okay, no slides, nothing on the machine, anything like that, so you can actually sit back and relax and maybe listen to me, which is actually one of the main themes that I want to explore in the short time that I've got now, and I guarantee you that we will have time for both discussion and lunch. I'm not going to go over, okay. The emphasis that I want to put here on these web course management tools is that they're very good for some things, but they tend to reinforce the God Professor school of law lecturing or law professor presentations, and that they don't really assist very much in their current form the student learning. They're really about the teaching process. And in making your decision about what sort of course management tools you're going to use, I think it's also important to consider the learning of the students rather than just picking one of a series of these features, because as Anna and Deb have already kind of gone through, these tools, whether you use TWEN, Virtual Classroom, whether you use, as I have, WebCT, Top Class, and what was the other one that I used one time? Web Course in a Box, WCB. They all pretty much do the same things in slightly different ways, okay? It's just a question of whether the upload happens to be kind of nice, whether you can link in between the system very easily, whether you have to know HTML very well. And those are important considerations, and you can get the reviews from various places that Anna and Deb have given to you. But I think it's also important to consider what these things can do quite well and what they can't do well at all. And so what I'm going to look at just briefly are three elements of the teaching process which you might want to consider with these courseware packages. And it just breaks down into what we would normally consider in teaching any sort of class: the administration of the class, the actual teaching of the class, whether it be in the classroom or outside of the classroom, and also the student learning. And I'm putting that at the back in a sense the exact opposite way it should be, because that's the most important issue, I think. I hope most of you would agree. But we'll deal with the easy stuff first, the stuff that these courseware packages deal with pretty well in the administration and the teaching side of it, and then perhaps look at alternative methods to improving the learning of students using these courseware packages. Okay, so let me deal first with the administration issue. As Anna and Deb have shown you, these courseware packages handle student management or student administration fairly well within a given class. Okay, so you have things like the production of materials given out to students, the sort of thing that we would hand out lecture material in class or have it on our office door so that students can pick that up. Well, of course, these things provide those materials in a fairly easy to access manner, and indeed it's secure. So if you have concerns that only your students are to get your material, then you can guarantee that by password and login. Okay, so that does that really pretty well. It does things like announcements, or they do things like announcements very well. If you're not going to be at class because you're sick, your child is sick, or you're just sick of the students, then, sorry, I had to throw that one in, then you can provide that information. You can do it from home, okay? You can update your site and say to students, don't bother coming in, and they can check it at home, okay? So they don't have to come in if yours is the only class they're attending that day. So as far as that element of administration, all of these systems have both the presentation of material and announcements as fairly much a standard type of feature that they provide. They also provide things like submission of assignments by students. Okay, pretty much all of them will allow students to upload their assignments, which can be useful if you have that as an element of the assessment of the class. And they also have these quizzes which provide some type of mechanism for assessment or for students' own evaluation of their work. But I query how much multiple choice and true-false questions really are an important element of the legal curriculum. So I don't think that any of the systems which are currently available really provide anything useful in terms of the quiz systems, and some of you may have some experience with that, which we should leave time to discuss at the end of my presentation. But I don't think it's very useful, and I think that was really the point that Deb was making about the CALI author system. That is, that type of question approach is probably slightly more relevant to law. I'm not sure how relevant it is, but we can discuss that at break. Pretty much all of these mechanisms, all of these courseware packages will provide student information, whether it be whether they've accessed the pages that you expect them to, whether they've done the quizzes, whether they've done certain other things, and they can get access to their own material, so they can keep a record of how they're doing during the course of the year. So those are all pretty much covered, and that's all in all a good thing, because it takes away some of the administrative hassles of running a class. And as I said, pretty much all of them do it in much the same way, and if they don't do it now, they'll do it in the next version, and I'm sure that the issues that Anna mentioned about TWEN and virtual classroom have all been fixed in the new version, or new versions, so that's not really a big issue. What is an issue, I think, in terms of just administration of a class, is that you have the problem that electronic commerce sites are now having, which is, okay, it's fine to do it in your one class, but what happens at the university level? What happens at the law school level if two of you are doing it but nobody else is doing it? So if you're going to introduce these things purely from an administrative point of view, you need to have the support of your faculty and the administrative people so that they can, for example, post announcements about things like that the assignments are due in, or that certain other events in the faculty are taking place. And unless you have that type of integrated approach, it's going to be very much an ad hoc system. You're going to get people ringing you up saying, look, can you post an announcement in your class? And you're going to have to do that all across the board. And that just adds to your woes in administration. So unless you've got an integrated approach across the whole faculty, then I think these systems can actually become more effort rather than less effort purely from an administrative side. Okay, so those are the easy issues, or that's one of the easy elements. The more difficult issue is the issue of teaching. And essentially, these packages all share three basic teaching mechanisms. One is the provision of material, a kind of a one-way information push, where you're just kind of cramming this information into their head, expecting them to read it all, so you're posting the material and away they go, in the same way that you provide a casebook or other lecture material. So that's pretty much a standard incarnation of a paper-based model of teaching, where we just provide them with material and expect them to read it. The other type of teaching mechanism they've got discussion lists, and I'll have something to say on them in a bit. And the third form is question and answers of various types. Okay? Now, I would suggest that pretty much none of those help student learning very much. I'll get onto that issue in a minute, but let me just deal with the different types of these three features. The one-way information push works very well, but it's kind of monolithic. Okay? Students can read it, but studies have shown that most students don't like reading materials electronically when they could read it in paper. I mean, as Bill Gates once said, paper is a very funky medium. But anyway, so the point of this is that yes, it's very good for providing lots of additional information, I think, but not so good if you really expect students to have a deep understanding of a particular case. If you're expecting to do one case in a class and get them to really engage with it, I'm not sure that an electronic form is really that useful, and studies don't tend to show that students take it in all that well. So that's there's a problem with that initially. There is the second issue, which is that most of the emphasis in teaching on these courseware packages seems to be based around discussions. Right? They have these discussion lists, these threaded discussions, they're all very fancy, fine, and all that sort of stuff. My experience has been that in face-to-face teaching, which is what I'm doing, we're not doing distance teaching, but in face-to-face teaching, students would rather talk to me in class, which is understandable. Okay. And so I found that in the 2 or 3 classes that I've done using these sort of packages, the discussions were really appalling. And I would toss something out and it would just fall to the floor. Or maybe one student who was particularly diligent would create, would answer. But basically nothing really happened because they would prefer the dynamic in class. So you need to ask whether there's any mechanism, whether there's any benefit in using these discussion lists at all. I mean, I think there are some points you can use this. It's quite good, I think, for putting students into groups and getting them to discuss in a forum amongst themselves a particular problem that you've set for them. But you have to force them to do that, or you have to insist it's important by either assessing them on it or giving them some other carrot rather than a stick, perhaps, to actually do something with it. But my experience of discussion lists has been not particularly favourable. Others, I'd be interested to hear, might have had a really good time. Whether they use it or not is really, in a sense, irrelevant to whether it's good pedagogy. And I'm not sure that basically requiring or relying upon discussion lists as your main mechanism of interaction, rather than this one-way push of the published material, but this interaction, really I don't think discussion lists give you much in the way of interaction. Students will ask a few questions and make comments and so forth, but really that's not getting them to engage with the material in a way that I think is particularly useful. And that leads on to the more general point that I want to make about considering whether these things are good for student learning. And I'm not suggesting here, and I should have made this clear at the outset, I'm not saying that these things are bad. Right? I think that they have their place, but they are not the answer to everybody's prayers, and I think you need to supplement these systems and use them only for good and not for evil. Okay, so let's think for a minute about learning, student learning. I mean, what is the student response to these sorts of things? I think these things are very good for what we would consider within, I'm from Australia and I've taught in England, in both of those jurisdictions, we have a very expository lecture style, such as I'm giving to you now. And that's why I'm so good at it. No, I'm not good at it, I'm sorry, I apologize. But we have a very expository style, and students will ask a few questions. But basically they expect to be writing notes the entire time. And these sorts of systems are very good at giving that sort of expository material, and that I think is relevant or useful in terms of them building a basic conceptual framework. Basically understanding what the rules are if you have a type of doctrinal approach, basically getting them to understand what your approach is, what the context is, whatever that may be, so they can build their basic conceptual framework. But it's not very good at what you might consider to be sort of bottom-up sort of processing, where they're expected to engage with the material in a way that is more interesting and at a deeper level than you have with just getting them to write down lecture notes or reading your outline on these web courses and so forth. And there are a whole lot of other pedagogical approaches which are sometimes well-suited, sometimes really badly suited to these sorts of packages, and I think you need to try to consider whether you can add those sorts of pedagogical approaches to these systems or how you might do it. For example, one of the things that we're doing at Melbourne at the moment is building a completely separate sort of system that is runs over the web but is not based around these courseware packages, where students are put into teams and expected to do something. They're given a file of material that's electronic, and they have to actually produce documents. And in the area that we're doing at the moment, it's civil procedure, but we have a number of other ones that we're building. So they're expected to file documents, they're expected to draw up a writ, they're expected to serve it on the other side, and so forth. And you can do that over the web, but you can't really do that with these sorts of systems. And that's what we would call a situational type of learning environment, where they're put into a scenario and expected